sitting in Le Dôme, and I wonder if in the 21st century we are continuing a tradition that's of course well established in the early 20th century of people congregating here.
In the early 20th century, it was a very popular hangout for artists, writers, composers of all sorts. And nowadays it's one of the best seafood and fish restaurants in Paris. But in the time of Picasso, Braque, Cocteau, etc. in the 1910s, they could apparently get a sausage and mashed potato for the equivalent of €1. So the cafe itself has very much changed character since these artists were around.
Well, now it has this wonderful, very chic atmosphere. It was the economy of the Montparnasse area and its cafes, which of course attracted so many of these artists.
Yes, a lot of them had studios in the area. And if you wander around Le Dôme nowadays, there are loads and loads of pictures of these artists and writers above a lot of the booths. It really evokes the period very nicely indeed. There's a lovely one of Henri Duthieux with the dancer Roland Petit. And Roland Petit is still in his wolf costume from the ballet Loulou. It's wonderful seeing these three people dressed in ordinary outfits and Roland Petit with his fangs and his wig.
Yes. But I think there was also a bit of business that was done here as well, particularly for the artists, because you got a lot of gallery owners who had come here, a lot of people looking to buy art. So it was important to come to have an exchange of ideas, but it was also important to come to be seen, to be part of the milieu and the interaction, wasn't it?
So many collaborations grew out of these casual meetings. It's only a small area, just a little crossroads where nearly all of these cafes are. It's a small area that really facilitated interaction, people meeting, deciding to work together, having strong aesthetic arguments.
Yes, Carpentier called it a mecca for artists, and he also had a wonderful expression where he described the artistic republic of Montparnasse. Well, that tells you something about a certain political thinking that went on at the time, I suppose.
Well, indeed. What was particularly interesting during the First World War, when a lot of the traditional concert venues had shut, just round the corner from here at 6 Rue Huygens, a concert series was started, and that provided the launchpad for a lot of composers who became known under Les Six. The Rue Huygens studio was owned by a Swiss painter, Émile Lejeune, and around 1916 he started this concert series called Lyre et Palette, so appropriately music and art together. Artists such as Picasso and Braque would exhibit there, and not just young composers. Erik Satie had a specialist concert, and he invited his fellow 50-year-old composer Charles Koechlin to join a group that they were going to call the Nouveau Jeune. So obviously you could be young at spirit as well as actually young. But yes, future members of Les Six were involved. Georges Auric, who was then only a teenager, Germaine Taillefer, Louis Duret and Arthur Honegger all put on concerts in this venue. But what I think was interesting about the Rue Huygens concerts is they took place during the First World War. So, of course, an extremely difficult time for everyone in Paris. But I think this really shows how the arts can keep people going, that they can provide a force for continuity and hope in the darkest times of life.
Yes, absolutely. I think another thing that also attracted artists to this area was La Grande Chaumière, a sort of independent sort of artistic academy that I think was founded around 1902. And they said, well, you know, what we teach will not be what they do at the École des Beaux-Arts.
Yeah.
So of course that really fueled a lot of independent and experimental thinking. And at that crucial time, you know, when Dada was also beginning to develop. But artists then were encouraged to have it was convenient to have their studios around here, and they could also exhibit. So people like Picasso and Braque and Modigliani and later Giacometti. And of course it attracted a lot of American artists. So Alexander Calder had a studio here and exhibited there. I think studied there.
Man Ray had a studio just round the corner from here in Rue de l'Ombre. There's now a plaque there.
And you've got writers as well. I mean, obviously attracted because it was an economic area to live.
I think as well it was a great place for people to meet and for collaborations to start. For instance, in the Rue Huygens events, Cocteau heard Satie's music for the first time and immediately he wanted to collaborate with him. So they got together. Cocteau originally wanted to reuse some of Satie's old music and he was not keen on that. But eventually they got a commission from Diaghilev's Ballet Russe, which eventually became Parade. And later, of course, Picasso was brought into the team to design the curtains and the costumes. He got on very well with Satie.
And of course they were also part of the group that separated from André Breton when they had that schism in the Surrealist
Yes,
group.
Satie was involved in that. There was actually a big meeting at the Closerie des Lilas. André Breton wanted to take the avant-garde in a particular direction. He published something called L'Esprit Nouveau, and other people didn't feel that he should be in charge of this. That certainly somebody like Satie was extremely independent-minded, didn't want to be told by anyone what his aesthetic direction should be. So there was a big meeting at the Closerie des Lilas, eventually resulted in the split of Dada from Surrealism.
I mean, all of this, went to an extent, is sort of focused around Le Dôme, where we're sitting now, but it's like you know, pebbles and the ripples expanding out from that all around Montparnasse.
I think in the early 20th century this was very much the modern environment for brasseries and cafes. Nowadays, of course, we can see it as a period piece, but of course in the very early 20th century this place was new and innovative, so we mustn't forget that.
Absolutely, and that's the great thing about Paris. I mean, it's a city of modernism. It's a city of now. You know, the Eiffel Tower was still the tallest structure in the world.
And there were so many other cafes in this area that were popular with this crowd. La Rotonde being one of the best known. That was a favourite one of Kissling, who would come along with his dog. And just down the road from here, La Closerie des Lilas was very popular with the American crowd.
Yes.
People like Ernest Hemingway, Henry Miller, Anais Nin. And there's a beautiful garden there nowadays. It's a very attractive place. And just round the corner from here, we also have Gertrude Stein's apartment. She, of course, was a major patron of the arts as well as a writer. And apparently going to her apartment was just like being in an art gallery, only with sofas. It must have been extraordinary.